Hi, this is Rick for EDU Mobile. We're going to talk about our very first project and a little bit about the Android Studio as we go along. The Android Studio is a fairly complex piece of software, so we'll cover that and features of the Studio as we go along. But when you first open, and after you've installed Java and the Android Studio, when you first open the Android Studio, you'll see this screen. The first thing we want to do is click on the Configure button, and then you want to click on Sdk Manager. Now, if Sdk Manager is grayed out, close Android Studio and reopen it. And you may have to do this a couple of times to get it to understand that there is an SDK out there. Remember that Android SDK, or the Android Studio, is still in beta, and they're fine-tuning some of these features. So just bear with the application as they finish it up. But it is a very good way to develop for Android. Now, in the SDK Manager, you will see this screen. The SDK Manager looks kind of formidable, but let's see. We'll wait till it comes up here. Okay. Now, it will load, and it'll take a minute to load. So make sure this taskbar is fully over, or this progress bar is fully over. And what you want to do is make sure that you have installed at least the latest version of the Android SDK tools and the Android SDK platform tools. So you would select these like that. And you probably also want to install a version of the build tools. We probably in this case want to install the build tools for 19.1, but we have the SDK tools for 22.6. So you also want to install a API level, at least one. So you can see I've already installed, and you can see the status out here. I've already installed API 19 or Android 4.4.2, but I have not installed any of the lower level API or the earlier APIs. One that you will run into to install quite a bit is 233. There are still a lot of legacy devices, but before API level 10, you probably won't install anything prior to that at all. There also may be extras throughout the course that we'll want to install. One thing that is necessary for later in the course is the Android Wear system images for each API level that you're interested in. Alright, so once you've got these installed, you can go ahead and start a new project. So we're going to call this Hello Android, and it's an app. Now, in the package name, you'll want a reverse DNS type package name. By default, this comes up with example, and it will tell you example is an example only. Pretty much you're going to replace this second string between these two dots with your DNS name. If you have a .net address, you'll use net dot whatever, but here we're using EDMobile. The project location is where you're going to save the project. So the minimum required SDK, we're going to make the same as the one we have installed. So that's 4.4 KitKat. And then the target is API 19. The compile with is API 19. Generally take the default Java language level. And then the theme, we're not going to mess with that right now. And we want to make sure that we have this checkbox created or checked, create activity. And now we click next. And we'll just use a blank activity for this one. We'll click next. Here we can change the name of the activity. Main activity is fine. And we'll change the name of the layout if we want to. Activity underscore main is fine. And we'll have no additional features. We can include a fragment or whatever we wanted to do. But for right now, this, again, is fine. So now we're going to finish. And it will load up and build the project as we have it to this point. Now, I've also got the emulator running. This is a good practice. The first time you run the emulator, don't close it between runs of your application. Keep it open. But I'll show you how to set up an emulator here in just a moment. Okay, so now once Gradle is finished loading and creating the project, then the project will be displayed. And then what we're seeing here is a main activity.java file. This is our main entry point. We're also seeing that imports have been done for us. The boilerplate code has been created. So now in an Android project, we have an app folder, and that's where our application is located. In the source folder is where our source files obviously are located. And then in a Java folder, that will be where the Java source files are located. Now, in an Android project, we have a number of resources. We have some drawables. What we're interested in basically here is layout and values, these two folders here. The layout folder contains at the beginning the layout for our main activity, and this is called activity_main by default. And this will show us either a text view or a design view of our layout. So we can see that this says hello world already, and we can see why it says hello world. The text view itself, we'll talk about all of this layout stuff a little bit later, but the text view itself, this is an XML file, so the text view node of this XML file contains Android text equal hello world. Well, that's okay, but we're going to do a little bit better. Let's go down here in the values folder and look at a file called strings.xml. This says that there is a string named hello world that is bound to the actual string hello world. But the app's called hello Android. Why don't we change this hello world string to read hello Android? Okay. So this strings XML file is a resource file for what is happening in our activity and other places. But if our activity sources just a straight text, we can see now that that has been changed to hello Android. Now if we look at the text, this resource goes straight back to that strings XML file. And if I look at that, I can see that that Android text is equal to string / hello world. So let's go ahead and put that in there, and we can see that that is indeed what it really is. Okay, so now our application will read hello Android. So when we run it, that's what we'll get. So let's look at how all of this is happening. In our main activity, we can see that we have a class named main activity extending some class called activity. And then there is a method here called onCreate. And onCreate happens when the activity is created. It goes to a saved instant state and then sets the content view to something called r.layout.activityMain. So all of these resources are represented in a file called r.java. And we can look at that file, but you never have to look at r.java. The r.java file just is a resource file for all of our layouts. So r.layout is going to this folder. r.layout.activityMain is going to this folder. r.values.strings is going here, and so on and so forth. So we can use these r dot or properties of the R class to find various pieces. So this is loading our main activity. And then on Create Options menu is for creating a menu, which is not being used here. On Options Item Selected is used for is used with that Options menu, which is not being used here. But when an option is selected, we can override this and get it to do something when we hold down on a button on the Options menu. Okay, so pretty simple. The activity main has two views. We can either choose to display this as a text view, and I'll move this over, which is here. And this is the usual view for this. Unless we're aligning controls, we can also choose to view it as a design view. One thing we can do is we can select one of these and change its size directly in the grid. The widget here we may want to change this to a large text. So if we drag a new large text widget here, we can see it here. And then if we look at the text view, we'll see that we have a new text view here that is aligned in a little bit differently. So let's remove this text view, and we'll use string hello world for the text. So if we remove this text view and just go with the large text view, we can use that same string resource, so at string / hello world. And there it is. So we'll grab that. Okay. And now our design view reflects that. Hello Android. Very good. So now the last step to make sure everything is working is we want to run the app. To run the app, we click on this Run App button, or Control R will do it. And it will take a while. But what's going to happen is in the emulator, it will load this file into the emulator. The first thing it'll do, it'll ask us where we want to run the app once it gets through doing what it needs to do. So here it is asking us where we want to run the app. We can either choose a running device, or we can say, if we don't already have a running emulator, we can choose to launch a new emulator. We're going to talk about virtual devices next, but for now I've already got a virtual device set up, and I'm going to run it on that device. So I click OK. And now we see waiting for device, installing com.edumobile.helloandroid.app. There we go. Hello Android. And we're getting information from Logcat. I apologize, it's a little bit more difficult to see. You can change the various properties. I have made the editor font bigger, but you can change the editor properties under preferences. One thing is that if you're going to increase your font sizes, I will cover this very quickly. The editor font sizes are a little bit non-intuitive to change. First thing you need to do is this will set up with a default font. You need to click Save As and give it a name before you can actually change the font. And once you've done that, this size becomes editable. If it's just in the default, the size is not editable. So that's a very important piece of that. All right, so finally, how do we get an emulator in the first place? I can close this now. This is an Android virtual device. The emulators are called Android virtual devices, and in order to create one, we need to go to the Avd Manager. So the Avd Manager is this little icon here, and when we click it, we'll see this interface. So it starts the Avd Manager. So now when we click it, we see this interface, and you can see I've already created one. To create a new one, you click on New, obviously, and then you must give it a name. So we can make a name like tablet, let's say, and then use a specific device. So let's say that we have a 10.1 WXGA tablet, and use a particular target. This is API level 19, and then we can say that this is with a ARM 7 v7a API. We can say that we have a hardware keyboard present for our tablet, or we can say that we don't. We can skin it. We don't have to skin the tablet. We'll just leave that blank. Specify a front camera and back camera if we have those on our computer that we want to emulate through this. We can set up the memory so we can change what is in the RAM and the virtual memory heap. The internal storage. We can also specify that there is an SD card. We can resize the window so we can read all the options. And then we can also say that we want to emulate with the host GPU or as a snapshot. So this is how we set up a new Android virtual device. Once